All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am really excited to have you all here. My name is Kylie Bunting, and I am the Digital Engagement Architect of Alumni Relations here at NMU. And I'd like to welcome you to Northern Now, the digital event series presented by NMU Alumni Relations for alumni and friends. I'm glad you have joined us for tonight's book reading and influencer chat. And we're really excited to continue this series and to share some insight from author and TikTok influencer Mylan Murphy. So first, I'd like to just go over a couple of logistics with you. While we are unable to see and hear you in this webinar format, we still want to hear from you. So I will be monitoring the Q&A function. So if you have any questions or comments for Mylan, please share them there. You can also use the chat function to talk with your fellow alumni and friends who are also tuning in. A quick note about that, in the chat window, there's a drop-down menu to send chats to hosts and panelists or to everyone. This is defaulted to just hosts and panelists, so make sure you change it to everyone so you can chat with your fellow Wildcats. Northern Now takes place the second Wednesday of every month. In May, we will have a panel of alumni from Graduate Studies, and in June, we're going to welcome back Chef Alden Griffiths for a cooking segment. Then we'll take a break until the fall and then start back up again. Also, a quick save the date, homecoming is September 23rd and 24th, so mark your calendars there. I also want to take just a quick moment to mention Wildcats Connect, which is a platform for alumni and students to ask and offer advice. It's a great way to help out NMU students to stay connected to the university and get in touch with your fellow alumni. So please sign up. You can find more information on our website, and it's a great way for you to stay involved and help students along the way too. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms, so keep in touch that way. And now I would like to welcome Mylan Murphy, a social media influencer, content creator, and author. Mylan graduated from NMU in 2012 with his bachelor's degree in entertainment and sports promotion and a master's degree as well from NMU in 2014. Mylan is going to start by reading his motivational children's book, It Only Takes One, which tells his story of becoming an entrepreneur at the young age of 13. Then after he reads his book, he will answer any questions that you may have. So start sending them through the Q&A now, and I'll monitor that. And after he's done, we will have a nice little conversation. So welcome, Mylan. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hey, Kylie. Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be with you guys this evening, and we're going to have some fun. I see some familiar names and, some I do not know. So I'm going to still read the book as if there's a viewer out there that may want to know what's going on. But ideally, this is a children's motivational book, so I'm not going to bore you. It's hard to read a book via Zoom. So I'm going to sort of skim through the book fairly quickly. But again, ask whatever questions you want about the book. And then once we're done, ask whatever you want about TikTok, about social media, NMU, et cetera. It doesn't matter. So I wrote a book, children's motivational book, more so just stemming from my passion of inspiring the youth. So it's called It Only Takes One. And it's a children's motivational book, just basically about certain events of my life and my life story of overcoming adversity. So we'll just get right into it. And like I said, after that, we'll have some fun with the Q&A. My name is Mylan. My life actually started when I was 13. My parents got divorced, so I had to dream. A little baby picture in there. I'm gonna try my best to show you every picture. It's not very long, I promise you that. I wanted to be different than everyone on my sports team, so I started a clothing line to help my mom make some green. The clothing line was called Novel Clothing Company. You can't see the picture, there you go. A basketball player is what I thought I wanted to be, but then I broke my leg and had to come up with plan B. Here is my Northern picture, one of the years I played basketball. I was told I wouldn't be anything and couldn't succeed. I went off to college and received not one, but 2 degrees. I also went to grad school at NMU as well, so grad and undergrad. both from NMU. Good or bad, I wanted to hear what people had to say. I use it as motivation every step of the way. Decisions in life are hard to make, some people say. I decided to be an entrepreneur and still am to this day, / influencer. Who would have thought that this could happen to me? I've worked 2 Olympics and even with Nike. It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. The number one thing I teach is people may doubt what you say, but they will always believe what you do. If you're reading this story, there's one thing that I want you to do. Hold up 4 fingers and believe in what I'm about to tell you to do. Four, put 1 finger down if you've ever been told no. 3, put 1 finger down if you've been lost and didn't know where to go. Obviously, you should have 3 up at that point. And this is a really cool interactive exercise when I'm face-to-face with a group, just one of those visual things that you lose with Zoom. But 2, put 1 finger down if you've been through pain and strife. 1, wake up every single day with hope. It only takes 1 thing to change your entire life. And that is the end. So, as Kylie said, I'm open to questions. That's just a little snippet of the children's motivational book, but now I'm doing a lot of different things outside of that. So whatever questions Kylie asked me, and continue to put them in the chat, we'll just go from there.
Great. Thank you, Mylan. That's such a great book and a really great message for young kids too. So feel free, like Mylan said, throw any questions in the Q&A or in the chat, or any conversations you want to get started. But I'll get started with just asking a few questions. Maybe you just start by telling everybody what your journey has been like to becoming an influencer. I know before this conversation started, we before we actually started this, we were talking a little bit about, you never thought you were going to be here. You never thought this was where your journey was going to lead, but at the same time, you feel like it's always where you were meant to be. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how you kind of have progressed to where you are now.
Definitely. So I was doing a lot of motivational speaking. That's what I thought I was going to be. Motivational speaker. I've always done it here and there. It's something that I enjoy. And obviously when COVID happened, all of that went away. So what do? You can't go into a school. You can't, at times you could do Zooms, but it's not the same. It's not the same dynamic. So I had to figure out, I guess, a way to pivot and impact people from afar. So the very last school that I had spoke to, it was in Chicago, and the kids, I was doing an open Q&A. They were asking me, hey, are you on TikTok? And just like, no, I'm not on TikTok. I'm too old for TikTok, but I knew what it was. So anyway, they were just disappointed, like, oh, you should get on TikTok. And I was just driving home, and I was just sort of thinking to myself, like, maybe TikTok is a way for me to interact and build an audience from afar. So I did start TikTok, and at the time I was just sort of experimenting with different types of content. But then the pandemic hit, everybody was forced to stay at home, due to the lockdowns. And I just started walking around the house looking for household items, making something out of nothing, trying to give young athletes, I went back to my roots, trying to give young athletes something to do at home and to get better. So making things out of recycled items or household items. And that's sort of how it all developed and came about. And, here we are later, 251 million views later, it's just sort of taken off. It's just been really crazy. So that's the journey in a nutshell with how we even got here.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, we all talk about how so much we've had to, that buzzword pivot in, when the pandemic did hit. And it's just really cool that you were able to bring together so many of your passions in order to, continue to do what you love, but just in a different way. So, so really cool. We do have a question that just came in for you from Mark Pinnanen. He said he's there with Lynette. He said I probably sound old asking this, but as a TikTok influencer, what is the business model? What are the revenue sources? How do you make money at it? And I'm sure that's a question that a lot of people have. As an influencer, how do you make this your actual career?
Yeah, definitely. And first of all, Mark and Lynette I consider them, and I know that they do the same. They're family to me. They were beyond great during my time in Marquette. I love them both dearly. So, hey, Mark, hey, Lynette. This question doesn't come by surprise from Mark because he's a businessman as well. So the model with being an influencer, I guess I'll reverse. TikTok recently came out with a fund where they pay creators a certain amount every day, depending on your views, etc. It's nothing crazy. It's not a lot, but I think that their initiative is just to promote the idea that, hey, this can be a consistent stream of revenue if you want to build and create content for us. So one, there's that aspect, but again, there's not much to that financially. But the biggest way to leverage, I think, the model of being an influencer is just the brand partnerships that you acquire. So obviously the more views, the higher following number that you get. A lot of brands take a liking to that, and you're making content that is original to what you're doing, but these brands really latch onto wanting to expand and sort of tap into your audience. So that can be very lucrative. I mean, I've worked with the Home Depot, I've worked with Crazy Glue, I have a ton of other companies that I'm working with. I've worked with Fortnite, the NBA. I've done a ton of different partnerships with brands where that is essentially the main source of income that you get. And I mean, once you build that relationship, they want to do ongoing things. I'm working with Crazy Glue now for the next year. So that's something new. And it's an ongoing thing, but mainly the brand partnerships is really how you leverage the financial aspect of it. But other things come about, other opportunities come from it as well.
Yeah, that's a great point too, that it's all about relationship building, even when your job is mostly digital. When you think about relationship building, you think of in-person networking, you think of things like that, but it's really important in this type of work too. You have to have a consistent presence, and you have to be there, and you have to be attentive to the brand's needs too.
Definitely. And Mark, you do not sound old. This is new to everybody. I mean, it's just a new space, a new lane that's sort of been developing the past few years. But now, I mean, I feel like being an influencer is a legitimate occupation and a legitimate route that companies are looking for those ambassadors to, help their brand and different things like that. So, it's one of those things. Every day is different. But again, you're constantly, like you said, Kylie, building relationships. And the cool thing is they let you be you, because they know that your audience the best. So we're not going to go in there and say, hey, we want you to make X, Y, and Z type of content. They're going to let you do your thing, which is really nice. It allows creators to be original and true to themselves.
Yeah. Just to kind of piggyback on that, do you have to run content by them before you actually post, or how is that? How does that process
That's a good question. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of brands have certain deliverables that they'll say, hey, we want you to do this campaign. It's based off of a particular event or launch, whatever. So they'll have deliverables, is the word that they use, where they say, we want 2 videos and X amount of story frames, or we want 1 video, but we want it reposted on all your platforms. But by X day. So they'll give you a deadline date, but they'll also give you a submission date. So yes, they want to see your content. And sometimes in contracts, you want to say, you know, you're going to limit 1 to 2 revisions, because I've had brands that, you know, they'll say X, Y, and Z, but then they switch up what they want along the way. So then that prolongs the process. So typically it's just, you know, hey, have a campaign that we want you to do. Content is due by the 14th, and we're going to go live with it on the 17th. So you'll wait, you'll get back, you know, the feedback from the team. If there's any adjustments, you'll make those and you're posting. But yeah, this industry is very, very, very weird when you think about it. I mean, just you're representing the brand. There'll always be those things, you know, no profanity in your music, you know, just different guidelines that are kind of intuitive. And, you know, of course you don't want to promote someone in the wrong light, but it's interesting. Every brand is different.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find yourself, have you ever gone after a certain brand's business, or do you find you get approached more often from brands, like, or does it happen a little bit of both?
So now when you say go after in terms of like, hey, I like this particular product, let me go see if I can work with them.
Yeah.
That initially, I would say initially I did do some of that, because again, when you're trying to find your lane, you're already looking around like, okay, what do I use? I use basketballs all the time. Like, so, you know, do I reach out to Spalding? Do I reach out to Wilson? So you do know, you know, certain brands, but honestly, it all happens just organically. Brands will reach out to you where it's just one of those things. They know it's a natural fit for them. And for you, you can easily implement it within your content. However, I've had some brands where it has been difficult. I did a campaign with McAllister's Deli, had never heard of them. There was one about 30 minutes away from me. The campaign went well, but the whole point that I'm saying this for is it was food. I mean, what exactly was I going to do? I'm a DIY influencer. It was food. Did it fit? But it turned out great. They wanted to promote March Madness. And even though I thought, hey, so I said to say, you never know, whatever the brand is, there's some type of creative tie that they see in you and that you can figure out. So to answer your question, at this point, brands it's pretty much all incoming. I don't have to do anything outgoing or trying to reach out. They pretty much see my content and find a way that they would like to work.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned too how this is a fairly new thing. And when I was working in public relations in Chicago, let's say I've been here for 3.5 years. So, 4 or 5 years ago. So the idea of social media influencing was very, very new. And I worked a lot with food and restaurants and hotels and things like that. And so, and we worked a lot with some, food influencers or that type of thing. And it was a very different relationship to navigate at the time because it was so new. I'm sure it's become much different now that there are more guidelines. There's a more structure to it, I suppose. Before it was kind of like we were flying by the seat of our pants trying to figure out how we utilize them because they did have such an impact. So so it's cool to see this industry take off in such a different way. Kurt Van Wormer wants to know where you get all the basketballs that you use in your video.
That's probably one of the most common questions. And to be honest with you, to 100% transparent, everything comes out of my own pocket, basketball wise. Right now, I strategically have not signed any kind of deal with a basketball brand where they send balls. I've talked with a number of different basketball companies, but I've strategically done that in a sense of a number of things. One, I'm releasing my own basketball, and I have a plan I'm coming out with a basketball in 2 days, and I have a plan that I want to have a basketball line. So I'm going to have, different drops throughout different times of the year, different sizes, etc. So I don't want to be locked into someone else when I'm trying to build my own thing, for one. But for two, I pay for everything on my own because everything that I do is DIY based. I want kids to know, even adults, because a lot of my DIY decor, I want them to know that it doesn't cost that much for you to do. All of these balls that you see behind me, those are a traditional size ball, but it's a $5 ball. And I say that to say, like, one $5 ball might get you 4 different projects, or it might get you one project. It just depends. But the ball that I use is pretty cheap and generic, but it gets it done. It's not like I'm cutting up a $65 or $70 leather basketball. So yeah, it's all out of my own pocket. I don't have anybody that's sending them to me. However, if I see a ball laying around outside, I mean, you'd be surprised. I just saw a ball yesterday. It was laying in gravel. I grabbed it because I know, okay, so it's messed up. It doesn't have air, but I'll find a way at some point to make it into something. So between me buying them and finding them, that's pretty much where they come from. But I do go through a lot of basketballs, that's for sure.
Yes, you definitely do. Allison Hawkers would like to know, do you think you will write more books? Would love to use these in my classroom and then pull in your TikTok. As a PE teacher, I'm sure my students would love this. That's a cool tie.
Yeah, it is. And Allison, to answer your question, I would like to write more. I think now, even this book, it's somewhat about my life up until really the influencing, which is new. So it's like now I can probably find a new way to pick up on a second book and, do that, or maybe take the approach of just this whole new industry, since kids are so intrigued by being influencers. I don't know. I would have to figure out what that is. I've been obviously pretty busy with what I'm doing, but yes, at some point I would love to write another book and continue doing that and get in more, more depth, because this is a children's motivational book. I would like to do something a little bit more meaty, if you will. So yeah, at some point I do plan to write more, for sure.
Awesome. I know that this question probably is hard to answer, but a typical day for you, a typical work day for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's different all the time, but do you
Yeah.
kind of have a schedule where I mean, obviously, like you said, you have deadlines you have to meet, so you have to structure your day around that. But, do you answer emails and create content? Do you brainstorm ideas? Do you actually film content later in the day, or is it completely random and you just do what you got to do?
That question is tough, because you're right. You almost, as weird as this sounds, you almost can't have a schedule. Like right now, I told you, just from the two of us talking, right now I'm helping in a movie. So I've been on set for the past 3 weeks, and I'll be on set for the next 2.5 months. So like, that's a long period that I'm on a movie set, and obviously trying to do that, but then trying to keep up with my brand, trying to keep up with the launch. So there's a lot of different things, the content creation. It is random. I can't tell you that one day looks the same, because one minute you might have a brand reaching out to you, so you're in the negotiation, the talk phase, or hey, you have the content to create, or so I mean, you're constantly pivoting as an influencer. And I think that it's important to have the flexibility. You almost can't get set in a schedule, because depending on a certain time, or if something happens, you might want to make content based on that, and it's off the fly. You might think of something and say like, hey, there's a lot of buzz around a video. You might have a viral video, and then you want to follow that up with a part 2, or so. Honestly, that is a tough question, but no day looks the same. Every day is different, which is really cool, but it's kind of crazy at the same time, because you're just going with the flow every day, just but I love it. I wouldn't trade it in for anything.
Yeah, I don't know how somebody with my personality would do with that, but
Yeah,
but it's great for you. I'm a very list-oriented person, so if I can't check stuff off my list, but
Yeah.
but it's awesome for someone like you who's so creative that you get to do those things, and that's how you build, how you build your brand and how you stay relevant and how you stay current too. I mean, like you said, making content that is actually current and has to do with something that's going on just makes it that much more meaningful.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads me to talking about, what do you think is the most important part about building a brand in general? Because obviously you have your brand, you're Motivated by Mylan brand, which consists of a lot of different things. But
Mhm.
just building your own brand, or a brand that could be a brand for a different business, it could be anything. what do you think is most important, and how do you try to make sure you're staying as authentic as possible so your brand is really a representation of you?
Definitely. I think two things that go hand in hand. One, you have to enjoy what you're doing. You can't wake up every day and dread, in this industry, dread creating content. You're not going to be able to do it. You're just not going to survive like that. So, one, you have to find whatever it is that you want to do and you have to enjoy it. And this, I think, applies in the workplace outside of being an influencer. But then, two, so one, something you love. And two, I would say, just, I mean, more so your niche, whatever it is, like, so the passion, like I said, all this sort of goes hand in hand. Whatever you enjoy, that's your passion, but then you have to find your niche. And those might not be the same things, but you have to figure out how to mesh them together. If you can wake up every day and be happy with whatever it is that you're doing, and then you have a specific niche that you do, I think that that's how your brand sort of takes off. Like for me, I was able to incorporate basketball, which is my passion. I enjoy it, but then with creations, which I never ever even thought could be done. I've never seen anybody do it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I think that that's why my brand is being so well received via social media. So definitely your passion, something you enjoy, and then finding the right niche. And again, they might not be the same thing, but just finding a way to merge the two, I think sets you up for success with your brand. And then obviously consistency. I wouldn't say that that's particularly what you need to do to get started, but once you get going, you gotta keep that consistency in order to keep building.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, how Turning this over a little bit to tying in with NMU. So how do you feel like your education at NMU has prepared you for your career? I mean, obviously your degree was entertainment and sports promotion, so it is, a little bit tied in, but how do you feel like some of the education that you have has prepared you for what you are actually doing now?
Definitely. As far as my actual majors, like I don't necessarily think that those are playing a role per se, but just the discipline of, going to school, just the simple fact of that, is one of those things, like you said, you almost are regimented and you can have a checklist that you're following when you're in school. That translates into the workplace, obviously. But entertainment and sports promotion, it allows me to understand the marketing, the PR side of what I'm doing today, which has been very helpful. I will say that, when I've had agencies, I've had different things like that I don't necessarily, I'm not a fan of. I represent myself now, and because of that, I know how to navigate because of I would say, my degree, and you know how to navigate and represent yourself to the right level, which a lot of influencers lack and don't have that experience. So I would say that they've actually prepared me in that regard. Just being able to understand the business side of what you're doing and essentially promoting for someone else. So there's a lot of things that I would say my bachelor's degree specifically prepared me for. And then my graduate degree, psychology, training and development, I would just say, just in the sense of understanding people, that's actually helped out a lot because there's a lot of personalities in this business, and you understand that there are a lot of personalities in this business, and that's just how it is. You have to navigate every relationship differently. So the psychology aspect has really allowed me to see and understand that, I would say.
Yeah, you actually kind of answered this question, but I was going to ask if you have a team of people that work for you or that help you, and if you don't specifically, do you see that in your future?
Yeah, so I mean, I answered that, but it's constantly changing. So I will say this: the person behind the camera, if it's not my tripod, it's my wife. My wife is the one that's always helping me film DIY projects. So that's the team. But as far as the deals and the branding and all that stuff, it's all, all me. The ideas, the creation, everything is all me. I do obviously one day, again, I've had an agency. I've had different companies reach out as far as like like legal side of things. A lot of people steal your content, things like that. But yeah, I mean, one day I definitely anticipate having a team of people that, you know, help me move this, because you get busy and there's so many pieces and components that you just can't do all on your own. But so far I've been able to manage it, fairly well. And as I continue growing, though, that's definitely something I see in the future, near future, to be honest.
Awesome. Allie says, no questions here. Just wanted to say hi to Mylan. Thanks for
Yeah.
hosting. She's really enjoying it.
Oh, of course, of course. Hey.
Um, so I obviously have gotten to know you quite well with your time on the board, and I know that you kind of have, well, you have your content is always super fun, super lighthearted, but there's a deeper meaning to it at some point. When you first started this, I know you've shared with me before that you wanted to kind of help be that outlet for young kids, and you wanted to give them something to either look forward to or something to help them find their own outlet. So what does that really mean to you when it comes to influencing, and how do you make this a meaningful experience, even though on the surface it's lighthearted and fun, but it is truly meaningful?
No, definitely. I think that's really what propelled me in the beginning. I was getting messages, and still to this day, from people all over the world, with little, mainly no resources whatsoever. But they still have that positive outlook, and they're so appreciative of what you do. Or, they'll send you pictures or videos of a creation that I've come up with that they were able to make because they didn't have much. So that's what pushes me every day. It's just like knowing that I can help somebody that typically, had I not come up with something, wouldn't have had the means to play basketball, but now they can have fun, or now they can do this. I Like you said, I have a bigger vision than just making creations. Even this past week, I had a video go viral. It was on Sports Center, and I was driving and I saw this hoop. It was actually a basketball court. It looked like it was just completely neglected, abandoned, etc. And there were two backboards. The court was in rough shape, but the hoops were down. And mind you, when COVID started, yes, they took all of the rims down by me, just to not promote getting together and playing, etc. But all of the hoops are back up in my city, and kids are back to playing. But this particular court, just no rims, no nothing. So I was just pulling into it. I'm just looking at it. I'm just like, I think I'm about to just put some rims up. Like, why not? And part of this, going back, is just, you receive messages from people saying, basketball saved their life, or it was a positive outlet. It brought them out of depression. It helped their mental health. There's just so many things that I truly believe that, not just basketball, but any sport, I truly believe that it does, and it can just uplift and unite people. So with that mindset, I was just like, you know what? Where are these kids in this neighborhood? It was in the heart of a neighborhood. Where are they playing? Like, what are they doing? This is no, it's not a court. There's no court within a walkable radius. So I put rims up, and sure enough, I mean, I've driven by a couple of different times, and I even stopped one time. There's a father and a son there playing there. And I've gotten messages from people that grew up in that neighborhood, people that are in the community. They love it. So just things like that, I would love to do more of. I want to do that worldwide, to be honest. After that video went viral, I got hundreds of messages. Oh, you should come here. You should come there. Hey, we don't have any hoops. We don't have any courts, blah, blah, blah. I would love to do that. And I just think that that small gesture can lead to so many lives being changed. So yeah, I mean, it's so much greater than just the creations and the having fun. There's a true need in a lot of communities for something that just promotes, in my opinion, just good health and good well-being, and just an outlet. So
Yeah, that's great. I love that story. I was going to bring up that video,
yeah.
so I'm glad it tied in with that. Now, what do you think your favorite DIY project has been so far? I know that's a tough one,
It's a tough
but
one.
maybe pick a couple and then tell us why they have been, your favorite. Was it, some messages you've received? Was it what the outcome was? Was it, because, and we can talk about your basketball Christmas tree that went everywhere, which was a super
Yeah,
fun
yeah,
one too. But it also, has opened so many doors for you that leads to other things. So
right,
tell us about a couple of your favorite projects and what has come out of them that's positive.
definitely. So going off of the basketball tree, that's definitely up there. The basketball tree, so I'll just talk about that one for a second. The basketball tree, like you said, every platform picked it up. It was on a bunch of different news segments. It was just a big video. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So that was cool. It was just something I thought of, like it wasn't easy. It took 51 basketballs to make. And it took some time. It was hard, but the reaction and the response that I got from that video was just unreal. So yeah, that was cool. I personally I like sneakers, and this I recently had a sneaker fridge video a month or two ago that went viral. Like I thought that was a cool idea. It was just something stupid and funny that the fridge in my basement, we were taking it out, and I'm just like, you know what? I have an idea. One second. So, painted the fridge, which you wouldn't think to do, and put some Nike decals to jazz it up, and then all of my Nikes put inside. People love that. And that sort of sparked this. You had a lot of people reaching out like, hey, like, is this a science that nobody's really thought of? Like, does a fridge keep your shoes cool, which then in return preserves them? Sneakerheads get really into their shoes. They spend a lot of money on that stuff. So that was a cool video. Honestly, the basketball shelf is a super common one, which is these, like what I have the cardboard shoes on. That video, that was probably like my first like viral video, and it was again for Kurt stemming off of a basketball that wasn't even usable. It was a deflated ball. I just cut it up and I came up with that idea, and people loved it. So it is hard because you constantly are coming up with ideas, and some you like more than others, but they all hit people in different ways. So it's just been fun.
Very cool. Kurt wants to know if you remember your very first DIY project.
Yes, absolutely. The very first DIY project was very, very, very simple. It was a bucket. Going back to the messages I was receiving, I would receive messages from people in all different countries. Didn't have the money to play basketball. There was no basketball hoop in sight, but they wanted to figure out a way to play and learn the game of basketball. So I took a bucket, just your standard bucket. I just cut the bottom out and literally put the bucket on a tree and just showed, hey, and it wasn't anything that I came up with. That wasn't an original idea, but I think it was just the principle and the concept that you don't have to have the nicest equipment to play the game of basketball. I mean, I've personally grown up in neighborhoods where I've played on milk crate hoops and different things like that. So it's not about having the nicest goal or basketball rim. Certain people call it different things. It's just the fact of being able to play. So that was the very first DIY video, just the bucket hoop, and people loved it. I mean, there were kids all over the world sending me videos of their bucket hoops and then playing on it. And I think that that's just what promotes the game. It's not about having the best equipment. So that was the very first one.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You found your niche in DIY.
Mm-hmm.
What other things did you try at the beginning that you didn't find to be as successful when it came to, I guess, TikTok specifically, but social media in general?
That's a great question. I initially started off with like the motivational content just because I had came off of the motivational speaking. So I'm like, oh, like, let me try to do the motivational thing on TikTok. TikTok didn't quite work that way for me. And then after the motivational side of things, I got into skits. So I was just doing like funny skits, which some of them actually did really well, but I knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do. Not that it's not in my character. It was still skits based off of basketball and they were funny, but it just isn't what I wanted to do every single day. So motivation, then the skits, and then the DIY, and then boom, just took off after that.
And you said that you started with motivational, but there's still a motivational side of it with what you're doing now. It's just presented in a different way, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what the brand is all about. It's just like still making something out of nothing, still recycling or upcycling, motivating people to be better, motivating them, inspiring them to be creative, and not get caught up in the whole you need the best thing out. You can just make your own. There's so many different resources out there and things that you look around, you start seeing things in a new way. And yeah, that's the motivational side of it. It's like you don't have to have money to make this or make that. You can do it your own way or add your own twist. So yeah, brand that will never change. The motivating, the creating, the inspiring will always be the foundation of my brand, no matter what I do.
Yeah, that's great. Where you said a little bit like you kind of just get inspired by what's around you, but how do you get inspired mostly? And then what happens if you hit some sort of a creative roadblock? Because I mean, you're creating a ton of content. It's basically content for every single day on a bunch of different platforms, so
Yeah.
what do you do when you get assigned a project and you're like, I have writer's block, but for a social media influencer? What do you do to get out of that funk?
No, that's a great question. I the way that I am, I could literally show you my phone. I think of stuff in my sleep. I think of stuff at all times. So I always write it on my phone. So I have this running list of just ideas. That's just how I am. Not even just creation, just ideas. So I have a running list. So worst comes to worst, if there's nothing that just is right there, I always can sort of fall back on my list and just sort of go through and, recall like what I've wrote down over the past years, whatever. So I always have that to fall back on. But yeah, I mean, you have to really dig deep because this is not easy, like you said, and you are constantly coming out with different types of content. But the one thing that I do, I guess, is I try to pivot where, okay, if I'm not going to do a creation, let me do something different that's going to motivate, which is putting the rims up. And then if I'm not going to put the rims up, let me maybe go give balls away. So like there's always different forms of content that you can just sort of switch up in between, or maybe you find a new path and that's what you take. But to go to your first question, as far as what inspires me, I think it's just more so the audience. The messages that I receive every single day are just so uplifting. Obviously, you're going to have a ton of people that give you the hate messages as well. You can't please everybody, but everything that I typically get is just so positive and so encouraging. It's like, how can I stop when I'm impacting this many people? It's surreal. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in a nutshell, what does it mean to you to be an influencer? As
Hmm.
we're as our the definition of this is, changing and growing and actually becoming a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does it actually mean to you? And I guess you can maybe answer it in two ways. What does it mean to you personally as a person, emotionally? But then also, what does it mean to you as a business?
Yeah. So personally, I think it means that I'm a walking example of the content that I'm portraying. So it's like, I can go at this point, I can go anywhere locally or travel and people recognize you, or they want to take a picture with you, or they said, hey, I saw this video, or hey, that was so awesome, blah, blah, blah. So I say that to say, like, at any given point, when you become recognizable, it's important to also live that same thing that you're preaching. So the motivation, the inspiration, I try to also live that in my day-to-day life outside of creating, just the positivity. So I think being an influencer is also a walking example of what you're depicting online. And some people, that's not the case. Some people have completely different personas online than what they do in real life, or, vice versa. But for me, I try to be authentic with what you see on camera and in person. And what was your second question to that?
As a businessman, like as on the business side of things, what does influencing mean to you?
The business side of things, I look at it as you're an extension of another brand that you're constantly partnering with. So you have to be very versatile in terms of, you could be working with Mountain Dew tomorrow, and then you could be working with Cricket in a week, whatever. So you have all these different arms, and you're an extension of all these different brands. So professionally, obviously, that's very important to make sure that you're portraying the brand properly, but also holding yourself in the same light with your content that you're creating. So that's deep in terms of the business side, because it's also how you live and how you feed your family and support them. So it's interesting. Again, I'm learning every day, but just very thankful to be able to build the platform that I have, and just looking forward to, continue going every single day. What's
Yeah.
next? Yeah.
What's the coolest thing that you've gotten to actually do because of this job that you have? The coolest, I don't know, is it an event? Is it, something like that? What's the coolest thing that you're like, wow, I can't believe that I'm here?
Yeah, no, I instantly, for me so far, I would say, I'm just trying to make sure, but so far I think the NBA reached out to me, and they love what I did, what I was doing, and they invited me to All-Star Weekend, which is a bucket list thing for me. And it just happened to be special because this year it was in Cleveland, and the last time it was in Cleveland was in 97. And I remember as a little kid watching that. So it's like I've always had a bucket list of going to NBA All-Star Weekend, but it's crazy expensive. So that was pretty cool. They invited me, put me up in a hotel, let me go to all the events. I met so many different people. That's definitely top of the list so far, that this has taken me. And that's just from the fan side of me, just the enjoying the sport and the event itself. That was awesome. And obviously there's been other things, but that's for sure the top of the list so far.
Yeah, of course. That's like you said, when the fact that this is that your brand is also your passion, or, your passion is part of your brand. It's cool that you get to experience stuff that they get to bring you experiences that actually fall in line with the things
Right.
that interest you
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
jumping back to your time at NMU, do you have anybody who really stood out to you as a mentor, or any experiences from NMU that really stand out to you that, may not directly be affecting what you do now, but just have had an impact at the time that helped get you here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my coach at the time, Dean Ellis, I had broke my leg right before I was going to make my decision of the college I was going to go to. It wasn't NMU, and I broke my leg. All of my offers fell through. Dean Ellis, he believed in me, and he brought me to NMU. So he's the reason why I even ended up there. So obviously him, Mark and Lynette, who are on this was after the fact, but Mark and Lynette, who are also on this chat, they were so pivotal in so many ways to my time there. To rewind, Cindy Pavlov, I mean, she was like a mother figure to me, just in terms of giving me an internship, and then the GA, just sort of introducing me to the real world side of things. Like, hey, you're not going to be a basketball player forever. Here's the real world, and here's how it works. Because she's very particular, very professional. Don and Karen Rybacki, who were professors of mine at the time, they referred me to go to it was essentially it was a program at the U.S. Training Center in Colorado Springs that I was selected for. I was one of 30 in the country, and they sort of saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And that led to me working, 2012 London Summer Olympics, 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. And I met people from that. I mean, there have been so many people at NMU, and that's just like the people, Coach Matson. I mean, I could go on and on and on. That's the number one thing about NMU and the Marquette community that I just always it just holds such a special place, because the people there are just so amazing, and they are constantly just there to help you and there to just pour into you. And that I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all those people. And like I said, so many more, my teammates. I mean, I could go on and on. That would take forever. But yeah, I say that to say everything about NMU and the Marquette community. I mean, everything has shaped me into the man that I've become. Because you go in there, you're not quite a man. you're 18, but you're not a man. And you eventually mold yourself into that person that you become, years later. And NMU played the number one role, in that. I'm very happy and glad that I went there, and still to this day, involved, and it's always going to be a special place in my heart.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of NMU, what did you think you actually would be doing? So as you're going through school, you mentioned that, when you were younger, you wanted to be a basketball player, but that kind of, you realized that wasn't going to be an option as you went through. So as you were going to school, as you were getting your education, what did you actually think was going to be your job?
Yeah. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I started that clothing line. I've always wanted to work for myself. So I knew that was going to happen to whatever extent, somehow, some way. I didn't necessarily even know exactly what I was going to be honest with you. I've just been in my life, I've just been flexible and open to opportunities. So after grad school, I used the digital media experience from the Olympics to start a digital media company back home here in Akron. And that just sort of evolved and grew. But I didn't even plan to do that. So I can't really say that I had a plan of what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to work for myself. And just being open and flexible, one thing led to another. And the digital media company, I ran that for 8 years, and then seven and a half, 8 years full time, and then sort of pivoted when COVID hit, and that turned into the influencing. So still always work, for myself. And that's the only thing that I can really say that I always like planned to do, but never
Right.
really, knew.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I like how you said just being flexible too, because you never know when one opportunity, and if you're too
Totally.
set, if you're too focused on something, um, you might miss opportunities that could bring you to doing what you are always meant to do. So, that sounds cliche, but I
No,
like
it's
that. Um, what is just a couple questions as we wrap up here. Favorite part of your job?
ooh, I don't even know if I've ever thought about that. Um, I think just the reactions of people, like the enjoyment that people get from the creations that I make, I guess would be the favorite thing. Um, that's a question I've never thought of. I've never really I'm having fun doing this every single day, but I've never really thought of it like that when you ask it like that. So
Yeah.
that's what I would have to say, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about, right? So that
Exactly.
makes sense.
Exactly.
Um, I guess as we wrap up here, just take a minute or two to talk about some plans for the future. What do you see in your future, and how do you see this brand growing?
Yeah, yeah. Man, obviously I would love to get involved with, even bigger companies, be a brand ambassador for some really large brands. Love to, I'm on doing the movie thing right now. So whether that translates into a role, I'm seeing everything. I'm on set, I'm working, I'm rehearsing, doing things like that. So I would love to do that. I've been in 2 commercials previously, but I would love to do more of that. Um, Honestly, the whole taking renovations of courts and doing and creating courts, I want to do that worldwide. There's so many things that I really want to do. My creations, I would love to have like an innovation center slash museum where you can see different things. I there's so again ideas, and but whatever comes first. I don't know what's going to come first, what's going to happen, but those are some of the visions that I have in mind. So whether it be movie, commercial industry, doing the renovations, it's probably all going to come at once, and it's all going to just be happening. It's just going to be crazy. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. We'll just see. Just see what happens. But the
Yeah,
future is definitely bright with the brand, and I'm really excited for it. So
yeah, that's great. Um, Lynette and Mark said, "Love that you're thinking big."
thank you. You too, out of anyone, know that's what I do. I definitely don't think small when it comes to anything. You have to expand your mind and see all the possibilities that are out there, because there's just nothing but possibilities every day, the way I look at it. So definitely thinking big, and again, it was so awesome to talk with those two specifically because they've done so much for me. So
Yeah,
I
very cool. Well, thank you. I think we'll wrap up on that note. I feel like that's a good way to end it. Think big and, keep dreaming, and I think that's a
absolutely.
good way. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. And thank you everyone for tuning in. If you have any more questions, feel free to fill them to Kylie and I'll answer them, as best as I can.
Perfect. Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining us. Uh, we look forward to continuing this series next month. I'll be sending out a quick survey at the end of this too tomorrow. So just let us know how you liked the event. Let us know if there's any topics that you'd like to hear about in the future too. And I'll also be choosing one winner from tonight's attendees to win a sweet alumni t-shirt. So keep your eye on that. As Mylan said, if you have any follow-up questions, just send them to alumni@nmu.edu and we can make sure that we get those over to him. Keep in touch with us on NMU's social media. Make sure we have your updated contact information so you can join us on some cool events and be part of things that we're doing both digitally and in person. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you all again soon. And thanks, Mylan.
You got it. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye.